Okay, in today's video, I'm gonna talk about finding yourself, being yourself. Find and be your authentic self. And kind of related to that, there's a sister concept of finding your passion. And part of me wants to call it just total horseshit. It's hard because I used to believe in this. And in my 20s, my early 20s, I believed in this, and I looked for it. I tried to find myself. I tried to find my passion in my work, and I couldn't find it. And later I realized, after about 20 years, I realized that I had actually made it. I had made my passion. I had made myself, and continue to make more selves, if you will. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. I'll start with the jiu-jitsu analogy, and then I'm going to talk about some philosophy with Hannah Arendt. So when I first started jiu-jitsu, yeah, I loved it. I was crazy about it. I was addicted to it. And but it was hard. It was really hard. It's hard to learn the techniques and apply them and then think you're good at it and then get your ass whooped by a blue belt, or a really strong white belt or a really good white belt. And so it's hard, but even from the beginning, what I noticed about jiu-jitsu was that there were a lot of different techniques and a lot of different styles. And so to me, jiu-jitsu was going to be one of my main canvases. So it's going to be like my creative endeavor, meaning I wanted to find my jiu-jitsu. Okay. But it doesn't make sense if you say it like that. I want to find my jiu-jitsu. You've never done jiu-jitsu before. You've never done it before. What's there to find? There's nothing there. You're blank. It's an empty canvas, right? It's totally blank. It's tabula rasa. So to say that I want to find my true jiu-jitsu self is a ridiculous statement that I think all jiu-jitsu practitioners will agree on, right? So that's the analogy. But so I had no picture in mind of what I wanted my jiu-jitsu to look like, but I knew that I wanted it to be unique. I wanted to create my own jiu-jitsu. I wanted to do something that was kind of reflected who I was. And you can't do that if you don't know the techniques. You have to have a strong and pretty broad foundation. So what I did was I just learned everything that I could. And I have an amazing coach. So he taught me, just everything. I would ask him questions, can you teach me this? And he would teach me that. And then, and then he would teach me all his stuff, what he thought was important. He gave me a really strong foundation in jiu-jitsu. Everything from escapes to guard recovery to the basics of passing. Like my foundation was pretty strong, I would say. And then based off of that foundation, I was able to kind of say, oh, that's really kind of cool, and that's really kind of interesting. But the other thing that happens, and so I would pursue that, right? But the other thing that would happen a lot, and this happens to everybody in jiu-jitsu, is that you get beat in the same way over and over, and this becomes a problem that this is the fun part of jiu-jitsu, is that you're presented with problems that you can solve, right? And there are always solutions. This is the cool thing about jiu-jitsu. There's always like 3 or 4 solutions, right? You get caught in a triangle a lot because you like the over under or double under pass, and you're just not good at it, but you just keep getting caught in triangles. So you want to learn triangle escapes, and there's like 3 to 4, maybe even 5 really legitimate escapes that work even at the highest levels, right? That wasn't for me, but I'm just giving you an example of how in jiu-jitsu I think there are parts that you decide on, like, I want to learn this technique and be good at this technique. But I think a lot of jiu-jitsu is not like that. It's more like it's the necessity. It's the jiu-jitsu, let's say jiu-jitsu community that presents certain problems to you, and then you learn based off of that, and then those techniques become your part of your jiu-jitsu, right? So think about that, right? Think about that process, because life is exactly the same way, you know. I hear a lot of guys who say, like, I want to be leg lockers. I rant a lot about this, like blue belt guys who want to be leg lockers, but they have no guard. Well, you're gonna enter 90% of leg entanglements are gonna be from the guard. But if you're constantly getting passed and you don't have good frames and you don't have good guard work and you don't understand guard, you're not gonna get leg entanglements on decent guys. It's just not gonna happen, right? And I see guys like years will pass, 2, 3 years will pass, and their guard still sucks, and they're still obsessed about leg locks. And you talk to them after class, and they're like, "Yeah, I just couldn't get my leg lock game going." If I'm mean that day, I'll start poking at them and say, like, "Well, did you get any good entries?" Oh, blah blah blah. Of course not, because their guard sucks, right? So, you may want to be a good leg locker, but then jiu-jitsu will throw a big problem at you and say, well, you got to be a good guard player first. And you feel that necessity and you feel that problem. And if you're smart and you're dedicated and you actually want to become a good leg locker, then you're going to learn how to play guard. And you're going to develop a good guard game, even if you don't like playing guard, even if you think it's butt scooting and it's stupid and all this stuff. You're just going to forget about those prejudices, set those aside, work on getting your guard game going, and then all of a sudden you intended in your mind when you first started you were going to be a leg locker, right? That was going to be your unique identity in jiu-jitsu. But then now, after 3 years of solid work, you're like this really good guard player, right? It takes more than 3 years, I think, but let's just say now everyone's like, whoa, look at Jim's guard. He's such a good guard player. And then that becomes part of who you are as a jiu-jitsu athlete. And I think that's really what life is like as well. For me, there's only one technique that I was like, I want to be good at this. I want to be known to be good at this, and I want to be, this is going to be who I am as a jiu-jitsu athlete, and that was the berimbolo. And so, I asked my coach, Dave, teach me berimbolo, and he said, I can't teach it to you. That's the mark of a really good coach, when he is honest about his limitations, and then they do this, which is what Dave did. He said, I'm going to introduce you to my friend who's a really good berimbolo guy. And he knew a couple of guys. He introduced me to the one that he thought would fit my personality and my style better. And that changed everything for me. Super nice guy. And then I worked with him on my guard, the berimbolo, and all the techniques surrounding the berimbolo, right? Because it's such a complicated, big technique system. But now, if you ask like someone, well, what does Mark do? And he's like, oh, double sleeve, collar and sleeve, De La Riva, berimbolo, ankle lock sleeve. my main thing now is double sleeve. And I think it'll be that for a while because I've gotten really good at it and I really like it. The jiu-jitsu meta, you won't see anyone do double sleeve. And because nobody does double sleeve, people have a hard time passing it, right? If you have a gym where you're training with 30 guys and 10 of them are doing double sleeve, there's a good chance you're going to be stuck in double sleeve for a long time. Not just you, but all the other guys are going to be stuck in double sleeve for a long time in that class, day after day. Guess what? You guys are going to get good at passing double sleeve, okay? And this is what happened with De La Riva. De La Riva came around, and it's really interesting because De La Riva was kind of at its peak, and then that's when Jiu-Jitsu started in Korea. And as Jiu-Jitsu was starting in Korea, people were starting to get tired of getting stuck in De La Riva, so they started to really develop ways to deal with De La Riva and pass with it, right? And so one of the first things you'll learn as a Jiu-Jitsu student in Korea is passing De La Riva. Everybody knows it in Korea. And so me starting off in Jiu-Jitsu doing De La Riva, grabbing the collar so I can do berimbolo, I got passed all the time. You know, even by good white belts, as a blue belt, I would get passed. And it was very frustrating. But, you know, that's just, you know, everybody was suffering from De La Riva, so they came up with passes and ways to deal with it. And then De La Riva became kind of an inferior guard. It's kind of a weak guard now, unless you do different variations of it, which is what I do. Now, double sleeve is not in that situation yet. Maybe it will be one day. I hope not, so I can get more mileage off of it. But anyway, my point is, like, berimbolo, now it's double sleeve, and you know, a couple of years from now, it'll probably be different. And I continue to create my own style, my own ways, something that's kind of unique and original. And but it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of commitment, a lot of training, a lot of research and development, a lot of problem solving, and most importantly, it takes a lot of necessity. You don't dictate it 100%, not even a big percent. Most of it's going to be dictated by the jiu-jitsu community, your environment. Basically, it's going to be necessity that dictates how you develop. And you know, double sleeve, I started doing it because I lost a big tournament. And I was like, I got to do something different with my card game. And that was the, double sleeve, and it worked out really well. But that wasn't my first choice. It was out of necessity. Let's say I started jiu-jitsu 10 years earlier, then I would probably just still be doing De La Riva. Maybe now I would start, evolving it. But that first 10 years, I would have been fucking up everybody with De La Riva, right? Because nobody really knew how to deal with it at that time. 10, so that would be like 20 years ago, right? Okay. So all this to say, you don't find, I didn't find my jiu-jitsu self. I made it. Okay, and I think that's the key concept that I want to talk about, is that there's no such thing as an authentic self. There's no such thing as yourself. You're not born with yourself, okay? Yes, you have talents, you have tendencies, you have, proclivities, you have all these things that you're kind of, but they're so broad that, it's almost impossible to develop something out of that. But I think what's even worse is that I think all this talk about authenticity and being yourself and all this, I think it comes from some psychological problems that we have, and we're trying to solve those problems with the wrong approach. So let's get into the philosophy behind that.